we start the report. Well, there we go with that. So as Michelle comes to seat, we'll call for roll.
Alderman Cone,
Present.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Here. Commissioner Banton,
Present.
Commissioner Boaz. Commissioner Bradley,
Present.
Commissioner Garmendia,
Present.
Commissioner Keon,
Present.
Commissioner Williams,
Present.
Chair Stroud,
Present.
and you have a quorum of 8.
Very good. With that, thank you very much for your attention. First order of business is the minutes were submitted. I will entertain a motion for the minutes as they were submitted. Moved by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Williams. Call for vote.
Alderman Cone, Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Commissioner Banton,
Abstain.
Commissioner Boaz. Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Garmendia,
Aye.
Commissioner Keon,
Abstain.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Chair Stroud,
Aye.
and the motion passes with 6 voting aye and 2 abstentions.
Thank you very much for that. We have a fairly simple agenda tonight. We do have a public hearing. So if you are here for the public hearing, I would ask that you either if you're online, to sign up in the chat and acknowledge your name and the organization, who you're identifying with. If you're present here, I'd ask that you contact Michelle to my left and your right to provide her your name and your organization, and at the appropriate time, we'll call on you. Before we go any further, we want to take care of a most important item of business. Christina, welcome and congratulations to you. We understand there has been a big change for you.
Thank you. Thank you all. I got married this weekend. You're lucky I'm here.
So she's here doing her honeymoon week to do planning commission business. So what are you doing? I'll pop a bottle of champagne for you later. I want it in the records that we do acknowledge that. Congratulations for you.
Thank you.
So as I said, the 2 action items, the first is a SLOOP. We're going with the agenda, which is number 25, and I'm not sure who's presenting. Come on down. Jake, are you hearing her question? No.
I didn't hear that. I hear you.
You hear Commissioner Stroud, Chair Stroud.
Speak up a little bit.
Hello, this is Alexa Cita, Senior Planner with the City's Planning and Urban Design Agency. Are you able to hear me?
Not great.
Yeah. No,
It says the podium is muted.
it's saying the podium is muted.
That's what it says on Zoom.
Give it a try. Yeah.
Fine, just unmute the laptop.
And you could do it from one of these mics if you wanted to.
She's gonna come to the front table.
Scott sounds great.
Well, he's sitting and saying, Scott always sounds good. Yeah, come on down.
So this mic is picking up. Yeah, so if you want to like sit there and put this on. I think if you're here. It'll be better. So that's the closer you are to this mic, the better they'll hear you online.
So you do want.
Great.
Okay.
They're playing musical chairs for those who can't tell.
Sorry about your tone, just scoot over there. Just turn you around. Okay. And I get to. All right, how about now?
Excellent.
Thumbs up
Okay,
for Rich
excellent.
Bradley, so very good thing.
Awesome, okay. So good evening, everyone, and planning commission members and those in attendance online. Again, my name is Alexa Sita. I am a senior planner with the city's Planning and Urban Design Agency. Our next action item to review is related to SLUP Amendment 25 to the city's comprehensive land use plan. The following is the overview of the amendment, which are to host the presentation, which we're doing now, and a public hearing, and then vote on the approval. The public hearing notice did appear in the September 26th issue of the City Journal and a daily record, as well on PDA's website. Next slide, please. As a reminder, the strategic land use plan was initially adopted in 2005 and has undergone several revisions. SLUP amendments entail altering a site's strategic land use category from one designation to another. These changes are made in response to various factors, including action items approved by the Planning Commission, the completion of development projects, the use of the SLUP's adjacency rule, and incremental developments that have evolved over time. Next slide. So this SLUP amendment specifically targets the West End and Visitation Park neighborhoods. It aims to adopt the proposed land use plan outlined in the recently approved We Collab neighborhood plan. Additionally, we will also address areas within a neighborhood that have evolved over time and those that are institutional in nature. And lastly, those changes that were triggered via public comment. Next slide. Overall, we had 9 major sites that we will review in the next following slide. So the first one, located at 1171 Hodemont, is currently designated as an opportunity area. However, it has transitioned into a site for multifamily housing over time, and we propose reclassifying this as a neighborhood preservation area to protect the existing housing. Next slide. So as you can see in the aerial photo, there are multiple family units that make up the site, and to the right is just a quick depiction as to what is there. Next slide. Okay. Similarly, just if we go south of the site that we just saw, this is currently categorized as business industrial development area, and this means that these are areas where those in the market are there for new business locations. But as you can see, this also has evolved into multifamily housing. You can look to the next slide. So this is also multifamily housing, and so we also recommend preserving this for future generations and are recommending that we change this from BIDA to neighborhood preservation area. Okay, next, as we continue moving further south along Hodemont, this is actually related to one of the focus areas of the plan, which is called Hodemonts and Tracks. And plan, I mean by neighborhood plan called We Collab plan. This area is poised to evolve into a lively community with mixed-use developments, walkability, a cycle track, different types of retail, and even a microbrewery. And currently, this is also a business industrial area, or excuse me, business industrial preservation area, which is meant for stable businesses and infill development related to industrial and non-retail commercial uses. So we are suggesting to change this designation to specialty mixed use area, where a unique mix of uses can coexist with each other and are not primarily industrial related. And so this is a depiction of what's in the neighborhood plan. And then that's the aerial photo. And next slide, there we go, okay. This site, so we're just kind of moving south along the western part of the neighborhood, which is the West End specifically. So this site is also a BIPA. Now you're going to hear me using kind of like our acronyms, which typically suits business and industrial purpose. However, there's the one parcel to the south, which is owned by WashU, which is at 870 North Skinker, and then the one north of it is owned by the city. And if you could go to the next slide. So as you can see, there's the aerial photograph on your left, and there's the top photo is the parcel that is owned by the city, and then the bottom is the parcel that's owned by WashU. And essentially, the one owned by WashU are saying to change it to an institutional preservation area, and the one owned by the city suggested to change to an opportunity area, which is typically used for those areas that are underutilized, but also gives some flexibility to what can be there. Okay, so now we're moving to the Delmar Boulevard. So this is currently a neighborhood commercial area, which typically encourages the development and rehabilitation of commercial uses, primarily serving adjacent neighborhoods. However, since this area will be integrated into the future Delmar Farm-based district, we are asking for it to change to specialty mixed-use area for allow for a mix of uses, which would be better suited for the type of development. And also, you don't see it here, but just west of this strip on Delmar is also specialty mixed-use area already. If you move further west down Delmar, and if you take a look at your resolution packet on the existing land use map, and you look at Delmar, you'll see it there on Exhibit A. That area along Delmar on the most western side is a specialty mixed-use area. Next slide. So this is what's there now. Existing. You can go to the next slide. So now we're again moving on Delmar, but going east. This is also an area that is in the proposed Delmar FBD, but this is also an area that's in the focus, that's considered a focus area in the neighborhood plan. And in the neighborhood plan, it's called Delmar and Developer, if you want to take a further deep dive into it. And so the goal of the plan is to establish a gateway into the West End neighborhood, enhance pedestrian connections to amenities like the greenways, like Ruth Porter Mall, St. Vincent Greenway, Hodemont Tracks. And we do believe that right now it's a neighborhood commercial area, but changing the land use to specialty mixed use would be better suited for this site along Delmar. And so that's the vision of the plan, and that's what's there now. So we have People's Health Clinic, we have multifamily housing, a residential tower. So that's right there along Delmar. Next is Delmar Divine, which was also originally an opportunity area, but now it has been developed into a multifaceted center that has residential uses, retail, and community spaces. And reclassifying this from an opportunity area to a specialty mixed use area is better use of this site. And it's small, but that is Delmar as it is now, or the Delmar Divine building. And lastly, Cook School. It's already slated for renovations into apartments. And the developer is actively working with the community to create a community benefits agreement. And given these efforts and the intended use, we propose reclassifying this site from an institutional preservation area to a neighborhood preservation area to preserve those homes that are slated to be there for apartments. And so that's Cook School. As you see the aerial, there's a big parking lot. And also in the neighborhood plan, it does talk about potential sites for development. And so like Cook School, Delmar Divine, while they weren't giving like plans for it, they did recognize that these are large sites within the neighborhood that could have impact. Okay, and so next, these upcoming slides, we'll just really go through them briefly. And there are 13 sites with diverse land use designations. And what unites these sites is that these all constitute nodes within the neighborhood that are owned by institutions such as schools and churches. And so amending their land use designation, which are multiple to institutional preservation development area, can have a positive impact on the enhancement of the surrounding area. For specific addresses and ownership details, you can refer to Exhibit B in your resolution packet. So this would just be the next 3 slides. We did condense them a bit, but again, if you look at your resolution package, you'll see that there's institutions owned by various churches, some more WashU property, And it's sort of like reverting that back to them in ownership. And for them to be able to develop the land the way they see fit. Okay. Okay, so these next two slides are, were in response to recent public comment that we received on October 16th. And we revisited our original resolution to make some necessary necessary amendments. So the first comment pertains to the 5,900 and to the 6,000 blocks of Etzel. And these blocks are primarily residential. And we were made aware that within these blocks, Cornerstone Corporation has actively been rehabilitating the homes within this area. And so as you can see right now, it is a neighborhood development area, which would suggest that the area would be over 50% vacant, but we can clearly see in that aerial photo that it's not, that there are homes there. And the picture at the bottom shows some of the original houses that are still there and intact. And so we said that it would be better suited as a neighborhood preservation area. The next slide. This was also another one that we received via public comment, which is on the 5000 block of Cabanee. And in this case, it's like the inverse where this is a neighborhood preservation area, but as you can see in the aerial photo, that more than 50% of the block is vacant. So it makes more sense for this to be a neighborhood development area, signaling to developers that there could be new housing here, in which it's vacant. And so next slide. That essentially concludes my presentation, and now the commissioners will open it up to public.
All right, thank you very much. Again, there is a public hearing, so I ask if you're online to register your name through chat. And I'll be notified at the appropriate time. If you're present, please be sure to give your name to Michelle, and I'll notify you at that appropriate time. I'll call motion to open public hearing.
So move, Commissioner Bradley.
Second, Commissioner Garmendia.
It's been moved by Commissioner Bradley, second by Commissioner Garmedia. Call for vote.
Alderman Collins,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Commissioner Banton,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Garmendia,
Aye.
Commissioner Kiara,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams. Chris Robin,
Aye.
motion passes without present voting aye.
Thank you very much. At this time, the public hearing is open. Any individual that would like to make remarks, we will limit you to 2 minutes. At this point, Scott, do you, any registers online? Last call for online registrations for public hearing. Call 1. Call 2. Call 3. Still no registers online. With that, any present for a public hearing?
Yes, Mr. Carlson.
Okay, Mr. Carlson, if you step to the podium, identify yourself, please, because we're recording. And then you have 2 minutes to make your comments.
We might be able to arrange it.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Okay, we'll try it first to see if we can hear you, and then if not, we'll make another adjustment.
My name is Gordon Carlson. I live at 5613 Etzel.
Are you able to hear him, Commissioners? I have a yes. Okay.
I have lived in the neighborhood for well over 40 years. And a little over 2 years ago, I got involved with the LEAF Lab working on this plan. When I joined the plan, my hope is that this map will be a significant part of the plan. It has not been. I am not objecting to any of these changes, but there are a lot of details that should be on this map that are not at this point. So I hope that in the near future, we can work on more details. Much of that can come out when we talk about zoning issues, but it is, I'm glad that we have a neighborhood plan that we can work on. Focus with the plan was primarily on the focus areas, not on the whole neighborhood. So we ignored some of the development areas that need to be addressed. And I unfortunately was out of the city for much of this year, so much of the final details I could not participate in. But I do not have any objection to the changes that are being heard here for this meeting. But, for instance, where I live, this map shows houses that were there before it was redeveloped in 1981. So much of this map is out of date. I just want to make that clear to the commissioners.
All right, thank you very much. With that, I'll hold comments for a moment. Any other comments to be made on public hearing? Public hearing going once, public present, public hearing going twice present, public hearing went 3 times. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Commissioner Bradley.
I'll second Commissioner Young.
Previous
Moved
roll.
by Commissioner Bradley, second by Commissioner Young. Did I hear previous roll?
Yes.
Call, any objections? No objections. With that, public hearing is closed. Thank you, Mr. Carlson, for your comments. We are very excited to hear community members engaged in the process. It's never good to have a community plan and the neighborhood is not there, either for or against, or just a comment. So thank you very much. With that, as the commission knows, I go through the roll to allow them questions. We'll begin with Alderman Cone, then I'll follow with Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderman Cone, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Alderman Clark Hubbard. All right, Commissioner Banton, any questions?
Yes, questions. A couple for Alexa and I apologize. As a resident of the West End, I took a close look at this. So I sent an email earlier today about some of those public comments regarding those last 2 slides that you had and part of those housing neighborhood preservation areas. And I think it makes sense, but you know, there is a lot of engagement regarding the plan. And I know as Mr. Carlson said, there was a little bit less focus on the sloop. So I'm curious in all of these changes, what sort of engagement did you have with neighborhood residents and specifically the ones that led to those 2 final sort of changes?
So I will note that the changes that were made were actually more related to the focus area. So we did kind of like a broad overview. So when the consultants originally had submitted the plan, they also submitted a proposed land use plan, and we as staff reviewed it and made changes based off that. And so some of the stuff we're like, okay, this makes sense, but these were areas where maybe we didn't think that the consultant totally understood the land use category. And so we made some minor tweaks. So I would say it was mostly focused on the focus areas of the plan. And then if we saw major glaring things, like the first site that we just took a look at on the western edge of the West End neighborhood, where it's those multifamily housing units, then we took those into consideration. And I would say that was our general way of reviewing the proposed land use map. So the one that's in the plan, in the neighborhood plan specifically, was actually one that the planning department created for the neighborhood plan, compared to what the consultants originally proposed. And then in terms of this effort, it was mostly that was created, email was sent to the folks assisting with like the WeCollab implementation committee to make sure that they were aware of this meeting. But I will note that this will be something that we'll continue working on if there are things that we have missed to re-engage with the new implementation committee, because I know there's a transition between the steering committee and they're working through governance and creating a new implementation committee for the plan. So if there are things that the planning staff have missed, this will also be an opportunity to continue engaging and working with the neighborhood on areas that weren't identified the first time.
Gotcha. So there wasn't actually any meetings with the WeCollab team.
Yep, there wasn't any additional meetings with the WeCollab team.
Okay. Can we go to the institutional slide changes? I think those are the areas which I have the most concern about. It looks like to me that essentially we're designating all these areas from one thing to these institutional uses solely on the basis that they're owned by institutions, not necessarily on the fact that we want to see an institutional use there. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Which seems like not the purpose of this.
Understood.
Isn't the
Jonathan will
purpose
come
of
to
the strategic land use plan is strategic, looking towards the future, what we want in these, what we want to
Jonathan
use?
is at the podium and will further answer.
Yeah, John, you have to speak up, that mic's not functioning.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jonathan Roper. I am the city planning executive for the city of St. Louis Planning and Urban Design Agency. And
Are you hearing him, Commissioner Bandy?
Very
Yes.
softly.
Okay, he's gonna move to the table. Bear with me one moment. Jonathan is coming to the table.
good evening, members, and thank you, Chair. Good evening, members of the Planning and Community Design Commission. My name is Jonathan Roper. I am the city planning executive for neighborhood planning for the city of St. Louis's Planning and Urban Design Agency. And so the SLOOP category, the question about the institutional preservation and development areas, that SLOOP category was specifically made for parcels that were owned by institutions, including religious institutions. It was mainly for, there was a lawsuit with the US Supreme Court a couple of decades ago called RLUIPA, where it looked at the separation between the government and the government's, I don't want to say overreach, but just government's involvement with religious activities and being an overburden for religious freedom. So the SLOOP in 2001 created a category, the IPDA, which recognized those religious institutions, which to our efforts really kept the city away from a lot of lawsuits pending religious freedoms and institutional freedom. So these categories reflect, we ran the ownership. So a lot of these were either churches that own it. So while these uses for institution, they do not, they still have to follow the underlying zoning. So meaning if they are under SLOOP, if they are institutional use, however, the underlying zoning, if it calls for, let's say, a house, or usually all categories would allow a church or something like that, but those regulations would still apply. So it's not like they could just build whatever they want. They would still have to go under our zoning code. But this case is we really just use this throughout the city as a way to say, if you're an institution, this is how we classify you, being fair with throughout the city.
And I understand that, Jonathan, and legalities aside, though, I mean, essentially any institution could purchase a piece of property and then suddenly on the strategic land use plan, we're designating it as an institutional use. That doesn't necessarily seem strategic to me. That seems very reactionary, especially, and I can understand churches, but a lot of this stuff is like WashU owned, Metro owned. Like I don't really understand necessarily changing the mixed use along Skinker and Delmar into an institutional use. And likewise, some of these parcels that are in the middle of the neighborhood that are neighborhood preservation areas, turning them over to institutional use. That it just doesn't make sense to me. And so that's one thing. The other thing there, so Alexa, you had mentioned sort of these nodes that the neighborhood focused on, and keep in mind, I don't say this, I know you put a lot of work and I'm not criticizing any of that work. It's just, I'm sort of vocalizing my thoughts on this. It seems to me that there's some of these focus areas specifically around some of these nodes that potentially could use another look at in terms of maybe we need to designate those opportunity areas or specialty mixed use areas, which seem not to be changing in this proposed plan. So I'm sort of with Gordon, Mr. Carlson, who spoke up during the public hearing. It seems like we might need to just take a little bit more time here and have some more conversations before we pass this, is my personal opinion.
Commissioner Bant, I am very at the table once. At this point, you're engaged.
That's okay. Can you hear me at all, Commissioner Banton?
Softly.
Stop, I'll do my best to speak up.
Oh, that's better.
Oh,
There we go.
All right. I just wanted to add, I think Jonathan's explanation of how that IPDEA category has been used within the SLUP is right on. I just wanted to add quickly that I think this is one of the questions we're looking at in the more comprehensive review of the strategic land use plan. Specifically, is that how we should use that category moving forward? Does that category make sense at all? Do those kind of legal considerations that shapes the initial creation of the category, do those still apply at the same level as they did when the SLUP was created? All of that's on the table. That's the only context I wanted to add.
No, that's great. And it's that plan and that update will be well welcomed, but I know that a lot of times those efforts are based on what's there currently. So I want to make sure that what we're going to be giving to them as the current, strategic land use plan reflects the currently passed neighborhood plan and sort of what we want to see going forward is all.
Any further questions, Commissioner Bant?
No further questions for me, Chair. Thank you.
Commissioner Bradley, then Commissioner Garmedia.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Garmedia.
Yes, just a quick question. So again, Commissioner Banton's feedback, are we able to pass part of the amendment or do we have to do it all in whole?
In do part. I'm sorry, you can do part. It can't be answered in parts, so we'll have to entertain a particular motion at that moment. So we'll hold that action for at the appropriate time.
Okay, because there's a lot of amendments that could be made that don't involve the institutional designation, so we could move to make those possibly. So, but I'll that's my only question. Thank you.
Then I would ask at this moment if you kind of frame it so at the appropriate time you can make that motion that highlights the particular numbers if appropriate. You and Commissioner Banton, either one. Commissioner Keon?
Not necessarily. Maybe I'll ask the question. I guess, is there anything in particular that would make it time sensitive to pass this today for the industrial sites? I think, again, because of Commissioner Banton's feedback, I do take it very strongly, and of course the resident that's there as well, in that maybe we can table that to come back to it, but just wanted to ask that generally.
Staff?
I didn't hear as well.
Are there any that are time sensitive? If I'm editing your statement, are there any time sensitive?
Yes, I was gonna make a suggestion. Consult with our attorney. But obviously, there's the landlord has to do a better job on it. I'm gonna make a suggestion to advise the board. You can approve all but a couple of them tonight. If you do approve those tonight, we'd like you to continue the ones that we don't approve tonight so we can bring them up again next month.
Okay. So, but to go back to your answer.
I would say those related to the focus areas, like the one that's on Hodemont and Trax, which is on the western side. It would be location like 1 through 3. Can we go back this side?
So,
And the Cook School one, I would say, since that's already in development.
So 1, 2, 3, and 4. Is that correct?
1, 2, 3, 4, and I will also include the Delmar Divine building, since that's also already happened.
And if that's the case, then if I'm reading correctly, none of them would be impacted by the IPDA, just for the commissioner's review in that conversation.
If I were to simply put it, I would say 1 through 9 could be adopted today or approved, I mean. And exhibit B, which would include, or not exhibit B, but exhibit D of the resolution, which includes all of those IPDAs. Wouldn't be approved today.
Yeah, based off the commitment's
Oh, and
conversations. Number 4, 870 North Stinker and number, what was the other one? Was there another one, Commissioner Banton, that?
I think it was just these institutional use ones, and I think Alexa was correct. They were all in a certain exhibit.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Cowan, go ahead with, if there were any other questions.
Just to recap, because I don't know if I fully followed what you were sharing, Alexa. Were you sharing that numbers 1 through 9 are time sensitive to pass? And then did you say exhibit D is also time sensitive? Sorry, you lost me there.
Yeah, so I will just simplify it because I'm saying one that's like how the PowerPoint's set up, but just looking at the resolution, I would say the ones that are in exhibit B, no, I'm sorry, excuse me, exhibit C, which are 1 through 9 on this PowerPoint, would be the ones to approve today, and then to table to another conversation or next time is those that are exhibit D, which is labeled scattered institutional sites, and those are all the ones that are institutional preservation areas. And then we would also add to that 870 North Skinker, which is, if we go back to the slide number 4, is owned by WashU in an IPDA category. Yep. So this address is not necessarily on the scattered institutional sites.
Okay, that's helpful. And then if we were to table exhibit D, that would be that planning commission would go, I'm sorry, planning commission, planning department would go out and do further engagement and outreach.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question, Commissioner Cowan?
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. With that, Commissioner Williams. And Chair has no questions at this point. So we do have the listing of exhibit D for the commissions that have it on there. So I'm not sure what the motion would be if someone wants to make it. We'd have to clarify it.
I guess would be the motion move to approve the sloop amendment and continue exhibit D for next meeting, or does those need to be two separate, or exclude exhibit D and then make a separate motion to continue it for next meeting?
Either way, as long as the
Okay, then I move to approve the sloop amendment with the exclusion of exhibit D to be continued at a further planning commission meeting.
I have someone readiness before that question.
That's what I was asking. How would you make sure that we ensure rather than pull it out? Just that.
Okay, you did clarify that.
Commissioner Bell.
Dave, are you clear? Okay. All right. So Commissioner Banton, can you just rework your motion, please?
Okay, was my previous motion acceptable?
Yes, it was acceptable.
Okay, then I move to approve the sloop amendment with the excluding the items in exhibit D, and to continue the items in exhibit D for future planning commission meeting.
I'm looking around for all positive heads, especially the attorney. We're good with that motion. It's been seconded by Commissioner Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Call for vote, please.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Commissioner Banton,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Garmendia,
Aye.
Commissioner Keon,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams.
Aye.
Chair Strada,
Motion passes without present voting aye.
Thank you. With that, these other items will be brought to our next commissioner meeting. Because there has been a public hearing, there will not be one for that already. And because it is a continuation, we'll get the clarification on that. Thank you, Commissioner, for your engagement on that item. The next one is going to be brought to us by Miriam, staff, and that is 23. So, there.
Yes, good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Miriam Keller. I'm City Planning Executive for General Planning and Design with the Planning Urban Design Agency. This evening, I'll be presenting this Chapter 99 Lighting Study and Redevelopment Plan for the 3101 to 3115 South Jefferson Avenue and 2614 to 2624 Arsenal Street redevelopment area. I'm going to refer to it, I think, as just the South Jefferson Avenue redevelopment area. Next slide, please. So here's just a quick overview of the area and the redevelopment plan and what it proposes. So there are 7 parcels included in the area. You can see this is just right at the corner of South Jefferson and Arsenal Street, right across the street from Benton Park in the Benton Park West neighborhood. And this site also is within the area covered by the Gravois Jefferson Historic Neighborhoods Plan. So you're going to see us kind of compare the redevelopment plan to that neighborhood plan as well. And the plan provides for up to 10 years of tax abatement at 90% of the assessed value of incremental improvements, and then an additional 5 years of abatement based on 50% of the assessed value of incremental improvements. No use of eminent domain in this redevelopment plan. Next slide. So here's just a little bit more context with an aerial. The main thing I wanted to point out is that this site that the redevelopment plan is discussing is right along the proposed north side, south side Metrolink light rail expansion, and potentially near one of the proposed stations. That's still being refined, but there's the possibility that this could be within quite short walking distance of a new Metrolink station in the future. And so you see the redevelopment plan has some urban design guidelines to promote the sort of transit-oriented character of the development itself and the surrounding infrastructure. But this is just a great site for connecting people to potential future transit. Next slide, please. The prospective developer is DeSales Housing with us tonight as well to answer questions about the project. And the proposed development and supported by the redevelopment plan is a affordable senior apartment building. You can see here the unit mix, both in terms of affordability and also bedroom mix. So most units affordable at 60% of the area median income, 8 affordable at 30%, and then 5 at market rate in the neighborhood. And mostly 1 bedrooms with also 13 2 bedrooms. The proposed development does include a little bit of corner commercial space and then also a small community garden on the property as well. And on the right here, you can see the site, the subject site, kind of looking southwest right across the street. Next slide, please. When we look at the strategic land use plan, we see the redevelopment area spans both a specialty mixed use area and a neighborhood preservation area. And then you can see the proposed north side, south side alignment is reflected on this map as well. The specialty mixed use area in blue indicates areas where it's intended a unique mix of uses be preserved and developed. And the neighborhood preservation area indicates areas where the existing housing and corner commercial building stock will be preserved and augmented with new infill residential corner commercial kind of integrated within the physical character of the neighborhood. And I think the future land uses and development supported by this redevelopment plan are in compliance with these 2 designations within the strategic land use plan, particularly the kind of integration of it just a little bit of corner commercial, but not so much to compete with the existing neighborhood commercial farther north on Jefferson. And I think the residential use as well, and kind of the early site plan does well to integrate with the surrounding residential context. Next slide. Like I mentioned, this is also within the Gravois Jefferson Historic Neighborhoods Plan area. So this is a plan adopted formally by the Planning Commission in 2018 as an element or supplement to, I should say, the city's comprehensive plan. So that means we treat it with kind of as an additional level of detail layered on top of the strategic land use plan in reviews like this. The redevelopment plan and the proposed development really are in keeping with many goals of the plan, and I've kind of identified a few here. The neighborhood plan identifies this very subject site as a potential site for transit-oriented development. The plan does a lot to support long-term housing affordability. And then also the plan does promote concentration of new development and new construction near high volume transit corridors. So Jefferson being one of those in the neighborhood. Next slide, please. And now quickly, just a little tour of the site. At the top is an aerial that shows the site outlined in blue or highlighted in blue, looking mostly north, a little bit west. You can see its context with residential properties on the block, but it is just south of a kind of the beginning of a commercial district on South Jefferson. Here's that same view of the subject site below. Next slide, please. Here's a look at that residential context just south of the subject site on South Jefferson Avenue. You can see a little bit of its character in the top image, and then another view of the residential context of the neighborhood east of Jefferson on Arsenal Street. So that's looking east down Arsenal from basically Jefferson. Next slide. The top image here is looking west down Arsenal. So the proposed redevelopment would be on the left side of that picture up there. And you can see a commercial building on the right, just across the street on Arsenal Street. And then the bottom image here, we're looking south down Jefferson. And this picture captures a little bit of that commercial context on the east side of the street, kind of catty corner to the proposed redevelopment. Next slide, please. So with that concludes my presentation. I did want to note that Becky Reinhardt of Sales Housing is here to represent the development team, and I believe Zach Wilson is also on the line to answer questions from SLDC.
Okay. Becky, I'm going to do something unusual. I'm going to invite you to the table because this is where the mic is.
Yeah.
And if you want to make any comments, you can do so at the side. And when you do, please just identify your name and the organization for the recording.
A good one. Thank you. Hi, I'm Becky Reinhardt. I'm the Executive Director at DeSales Community Development, and thank you for hearing about our project today. This is called Benton Park Place Apartments, and we've been working on this for a long time, so we're very excited to move this forward.
Okay, please just stay there for a moment. With that, I'll begin the questions with Alderman Cohn.
I don't have any questions.
Thank you, Alderman Clark.
No question.
Thank you, Commissioner Manton.
Always a couple questions.
Really?
First of all,
With the site and with the project.
Alderman Cohn, you got.
No, go ahead, Commissioner Manton.
Okay. Just first of all, I think it's an exciting project. I'm just curious. Question for the executive director: has the design changed significantly from what's sort of on your website currently? Just curious.
I don't think so. I think we maybe posted some pictures, some renderings on our website recently after submitting our most recent application to the Missouri Housing Development Commission. So that would be up to date.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it's a good site plan. I like how the facade is, it's broken up along the street. Since we were just talking about the sloop and sort of its indication, so does this project have any commercial space in it? Is it mixed use or is it just housing?
Yeah, it has about 800 square feet of corner commercial retail space that does not have a tenant lined up, but has been envisioned as like a coffee shop, pastry shop kind of locale for the neighborhood and for residents of the property. But there will also be ground floor residential.
Great. I think it's a great project. I'm excited to see it come to fruition. I just have one more question for staff. In the actual blighting and plan for the site under the urban design guidelines, there's a section on exterior materials where it says all materials visible from the street shall be compatible in type and texture with the materials of adjacent buildings. I guess my question is, who determines what is compatible? What does that mean?
Yeah, Don described that LCRA's architect, in my understanding, reviews all building permits in redevelopment areas and makes that determination.
They have an architect on staff that makes that determination. Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
And is there any guidelines that they follow, or is it just a sort of arbitrary decision that they make?
There is guidelines, but to get to details of what texture we're talking about is something we had to. Mostly that location would be some type of brick texture, I would say. It really depends on what neighborhood we're discussing, but Ben Park West, Ben Park would be, I would say, more so brick. That helps. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes having that sort of vagueness can be a good thing. I was just curious. So no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, Zach, if you just identify yourself as you responded to the question.
Zach Wilson was SLDC.
Thank you. With that, Commissioner Bradley.
Real quick question. So this is a great development, and I'm just curious to know if there's any notable sustainable aspects that you would like to tell us about this evening for the developer.
The question was about sustainable features.
Yes, any sustainable features that are notable that you could highlight for us quickly?
I don't have specifics on hand, but we have applied for funding through the city of St. Louis through CDA and have a substantial amount of that funding awarded that would require us to follow the guidelines as far as Energy Star certification. We're also going to be following the Enterprise Green Communities standards. So those are, elements of the plan that will contribute to sustainability.
I'll make a note that I think this project has been before us in the past. And one of the things is there's still going to be a bit of a community garden involved with the site.
Yeah, just kind of right sized, I think, for the community's needs for that garden.
And two, from the past, look at this is the corner commercial was encouraged to see its.
No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bradley. Commissioner Garmedia.
Thank you. This project looks great. I used to live around the corner from this property, so and one question, I think it's an awesome use. Makes sense for the neighborhood and the assets that will be going there. One question I have for the developer when it comes time is I believe close to that property is at cave access or cavern access. So if there is, please invite me for a tour.
I actually don't know if that will opportunity will present itself, but that's a really exciting prospect. So yeah.
Yeah, I believe one of the homes at Texas and Arsenal has a access to their basement.
Very cool.
All right, that's all my questions. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Keon.
Thank you to DeSales and Becky for always bringing this project forward and trying to bring it to life. I always appreciate it. Outside of that, no questions.
Thank you. Commissioner, please. Question. Thank you, Chair Cast, no questions. With that, first, thank you, Becky, for your information. And sitting at the table with that, if the staff would review the recommended information.
Yes, so we find the South Jefferson redevelopment area to be declared as blighted, and that the proposed redevelopment plan in conformity with both the strategic land use plan and the Gravelly Jefferson Historic Neighborhoods Plan, and we recommend approval of the proposed redevelopment plan.
With that, I would entertain a motion.
So moved, Alderman Cone.
It's been moved by Alderman Cole, seconded by Alderwoman Clark. Cover call for vote.
Alderman Collins,
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard,
Aye.
Commissioner Benson,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Garmendia,
Hi.
Commissioner Keon,
Aye.
Commissioner Williams,
Aye.
Estrada,
Abstain.
and the motion passes with 7 voting aye and 1 abstention.
Thank you very much. With that, congratulations on that process, and it moves forward in the next step. At this point, it is our dear friend, Executive Director's report. Gentlemen sitting at the table, Mr. Don Rowe, who's going to give us a show and tell or something.
I'm going to do a couple things, but first, to give some of my time to Jonathan Roper, the City Planning Executive in charge of neighborhood planning, to just give a brief update on neighborhood planning and the status.
Thank you, Don. And good evening again, everyone. I'm Jonathan Roper, City Planning Executive with Neighborhood Planning. And so the City of St. Louis has a new neighborhood planning program that is soon to deploy in our wonderful neighborhoods. Just an update of what's been happening the last few months. And we're going to start these reports regularly. So in the past month or so, the city has concluded a request for qualifications where we have established a short list of consultants for a variety of neighborhood planning services that are expected from arts, architecture. We get into transportation, we go into economic development, market analysis, GIS, geospatial. So we have a number of categories, 7 that was included in this request for qualifications. And then the respondents, which we had the respondents responded to the RFQ. How RFQs are made, the City of St. Louis, the department by city ordinance, puts it out. We assemble a selection committee with the mayor's office, the Board of Aldermen's office, and also the comptroller's office. We were fortunate enough to have Commissioner Grace Young as a selection committee member, and her time and efforts were well appreciated as well. In total for this request for qualifications and the 7 different categories that we have, we accepted 31 different firm teams that altogether will provide a variety of neighborhood planning services. Even if they're in the same category, different people do different things, even if it's, let's say, architecture. Some people are good at one thing versus another. So we are just blessed to have just a well-rounded team. These consultants consist of people who are local, who you might have even worked with in the past, to people who are from throughout the United States who are excellent in their field. So we are very happy to have a number of consultants here. We would expect to then start procuring these services, hopefully beginning of 2024. It just takes a moment to, once we go into a neighborhood, we want to talk to people about what their needs are, and then we want to hire. So we hire based upon what the needs are and talk to people. Another notable note is under the former city planning executive Cecilia Dvorak, she put together she did a request for qualifications for one category, the community engagement. That was last year. So the PDA has put out, we have under contract now one of the firms, Shockey, who is a engagement consultant, who will help us with really getting us to where we want to be with this neighborhood planning program in terms of engagement. We have a neighborhood planning strategy. We have, the commission has seen, including last year, approved a number of documents for this strategy. However, with Alexa, actually with WeCollab, the North Central plan adoption and the ongoing Project Connect plan, we're looking at, there are items that we think we can do better on that will achieve our high standard of community participation, but also local decision making. So that might include with Shockey from training manuals and training, how our steering committees work, how our field programs for getting engagement in the field work. So we're looking to have those finalized in the next few months. And we're looking for the next month, we'll come back to the commission with more on this. And we're looking to launch this year, so 2023, and to a neighbor. Finally, I will note that another item that we're working on is the website update. So right now we have our main site is planstl.com. It's been out for about a year now. However, with the company that we use, Social Pinpoint, it's their platform. They have upgraded their services to a 2.0 version, let's say. So we are updating our Plan STL website to the 2.0 version as well. So that should be coming to you in the next month or so as well. With that, I will.
Good. One quick update about the status of Project Connect.
Oh, I'm sorry. In the Project Connect plan, yes. So Project Connect, which has been, they have formally launched in December 2021. At this point, their consultants were let go in July, August of this year. So they've been kind of on a hold with their planning. However, we expect them to, which did delay a plan adoption. So right now, if there was no delay, we might see. We're not seeing their plan. That's probably expected next summer at this point, because they're going to have to put out a request for a proposal for a new consultant, which they're working on now, onboard that consultant. The consultant does the work, and then the commission sees the plan. So we'll expect that probably in June or July.
Any questions for Jonathan?
What neighborhood are you looking for?
The commission approved 18 different neighborhoods. Well, we have 79 neighborhoods. Most of the neighborhoods are in groups of either one being like Midtown or Central West End. Otherwise, usually they're between 2 to up to 6 neighborhoods, 6 being Project Connect, that's the largest. So right now, the Planning Commission last January 2022 approved 6 areas. So I'll just leave out Project Connect for now. Spoke about that. That's 6 neighborhoods. We have 5 other areas. Altogether, there are about 19 neighborhoods. So as this year, Alexa and I will deploy to one. We're not sure of the ones that the Planning Commission blessed last year. We should have that for you next month. So stay tuned.
Any other questions by commissioners open at this time? Okay.
Thank you, Jonathan. We're going to continue with just a update from me and a couple of items, but you may now see some handsome and attractive people on your slide. And you you'll notice that both of them have been selected by the Business Journal as part of the 40 under 40 in St. Louis. And Sarah, right after you. Aaron, where are you? So thank you. And if you read the fine print, you'll notice that Aaron has been the local chair, local president of UOI. and active with their efforts across the city. And as we know, quite active within the Ville neighborhood of the city. And, you know, we welcomed him just a bit ago to be on the planning commission and appreciate it very much, continuing to serve with us. Thank you. With that, you may have seen me walking around in the background. I was passing out the Economic Justice Action Plan hard copies report from SLDC. Everybody that isn't here tonight that's on the member of the Planning Commission will get a copy of that mailed to them. I'll talk a little bit more as to why and what in a couple of minutes, but I just want to give a little update that it's been a busy time the last few weeks in that my wife and I both finally got to take a vacation, which was good. So we've been traveling. We went to Europe, Portugal, and Spain. And in Spain, Jonathan mentioned his listing of these consultants and the numbers that we've gotten selected for this, and that list is good for 4 years. It helps us be very efficient to have that general procurement list started. One of the selected consultants was at a reception that I went to in Barcelona. Now, it was a group of Americans involved in an international group called Lambda Alpha that was at our Barcelona chapter and getting a tour of Barcelona by their architects and whatnot that is involved in development there. Spectacular to learn about Barcelona. And it's wonderful seeing folks from the United States going and spending time in these other places. So it is a small world. I'm glad we pollinate and learn from others and welcome to the board the folks that we've selected and the selection committee that helped us form that list. Having it for 4 years is really a great efficiency for us. What I'll jump forward to is since last Friday, I've been at a group called the Big City Planning Directors Institute. It was formed by the American Planning Association, the Lincoln Institute for Land Policy, and the Harvard Graduate School of Design. And we've been going for some 20 some odd years. I'm the longest serving member, which is a great appreciated thing, but it's generally the 30 largest cities in the US get invited to this. Unfortunately, in the 2010 census, there's some other dynamics other than just math because of our population size, because we have 62 square miles. Some of the cities in Texas are 500 square miles. But we, St. Louis and Cleveland, were a drop from that list. But they've grandfathered me to continue to attend because I've continued as the planning director for that long in St. Louis. I will tell you, it's a remarkable group of colleagues. Great, we do reports about what have happened in our city. We're the ones that initiated for the planning profession to make a statement apologizing for what the profession has done in producing inequities in the past and make a commitment as to how we'll forward that, correct that in the future. So great to be with them. A lot of things that we've learned, talked under the dome. One of the sidebar pleasures is that the Harvard professor that's now the liaison to the big city planning directors is a professor of practice at Harvard, meaning he comes and teaches, but he's also a professional and practices planning and design. He's the lead of the consultant that is doing our SLOOP update. So it's great to have him in the mix, great to be there with those fellow folks and have the conversations and the network. I'll use that to morph into one last thing. And that is partly why the reason I passed out the Economic Justice Action Plan, SLDC, is planning, and the Planning Commission has roles to adopt plans. They are changeable. They are implemented in many ways by actions of various entities within the city and actions in terms of codifying things by the Board of Aldermen. what I want to remind ourselves is we've had since soon after the Planning and Urban Design Agency was created in 1999, the SLUP, Strategic Land Use Plan, subtitled by a court to say it's the land use plan component of the comprehensive plan. That's what we're generally updating. But we're also going to push the envelope, move it so that we can, subsequent to that, upgrade our zoning code in a comprehensive way. Much discussions about zoning at the big city planning directors. And the other element is move to other things allowed under state law to codify into a plan as action and steps that stay in the book as an adopted plan. And therefore, those adopted plans to some degree transcend milestones of terms. And it's within that we want our consultants to be looking at other things we could do and things we can extract from, like the Economic Justice Action Plan, to roll into our update of the strategic land use plan and things to subsequently come. So it's a long-winded saying, enjoyed being with fellow planning professionals from around the country. And our SLUP update, led by Miriam, is really a major thing. And we're pleased that we're undertaking that and have the funding to undertake that. Update for today.
Any questions for the executive director? Thank you all for participating. At that, I'll entertain a motion.
To adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. I move to adjourn. Alderman Cone.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you for your participation. And for those online, thank you for making yourselves available. Again, and congratulations to Aaron Witten for the other 40.
And we forgot one, matrimony. Jonathan was married earlier.
Oh,
Oh, congrats.
sir.
Congrats.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Have a good evening.